Well, good Friday afternoon to you. We are tracking the chances for some wintry weather. I'm meteorologist Daniel Bonds.
And I'm meteorologist Alex Calamia. And, since we last were on at 9 o'clock, Daniel, we've already had some changes, including the National Weather Service's first winter storm warning in more than 3 years.
Hard to believe. And Alex and I were just talking a little while ago. There are some kids around that really haven't seen snow around here. I know my 12-year-old really doesn't remember a lot of snow whatsoever. So this is, I will say, it's kind of exciting. I know it's a little bit of a nuisance, but I think it's a little bit exciting too, don't you, Alex?
I agree. At least the potential is there for, kids to throw a snowball for the first time in their lives in their backyard. And I think that is huge. And, on top of that, I would love for people to actually record those moments where, their kid is seeing snow for the first time, or maybe their pet, because obviously we want to share that online and on TV, because I do think that, it's one of the warm moments on a cold winter day like this, Daniel. What's going on out there right now? Yeah,
let's show you what's currently happening across the Midlands. Now, the latest advisory from the National Weather Service out of Columbia, they did issue a winter storm watch for Kershaw and Lee counties. That's the area that it looks like will probably get more of this wintry weather, maybe up to 2 inches of snow there, but elsewhere across the Midlands, also could get a little bit of snow and some freezing rain as well. Elsewhere, we do have that winter weather advisory. That includes all of the Midlands, but as we mentioned, that winter storm warning is in effect for Kershaw and Lee counties, and that runs until tomorrow morning. This morning, we were at 41 degrees at midnight. That's going to be our daytime high, but notice those temperatures have been dropping throughout the day. That colder air spilling into the Midlands. Currently in Columbia, well, at least as of 12 o'clock, we were at 35 degrees. So colder air is spilling in. It's been dry so far. That's going to change. This afternoon, you'll see that change, but 32 degrees in Winnsboro, so we are at freezing there. So if any kind of rain falls from the sky at that point, may get some freezing rain up towards Winnsboro. 34 degrees in Camden, Bishopville, Newberry, but you mix in the winds. That's also making it feel a little bit cooler. It feels like 23 in Winnsboro, Bishopville. Feels like 28 in the capital city, 24 in Aiken. So it's cold. We're going to have the moisture continuing to move in, and that's going to bring us that chance for that wintry weather. Here's kind of a wide look at the southeast. There's the cold front. You can see it there off the coast of the Carolinas. That's bringing down this colder air. You look out towards the southwest. Notice the rain moving into parts of Florida and Georgia. That's going to continue to track towards us. And as it does, it's going to increase our chances for some wintry precipitation later this afternoon. And certainly as we go into the evening hours and possibly into very early Saturday morning. A close look at the Midlands. I believe this is just some ground clutter in and around the Columbia area. So nothing there. Here's another radar look, and you can kind of see the rain moving towards the Midlands. Again, as that colder air moves in and that rain right now moves towards us, it will eventually transition over to some wintry weather. So that's the biggest thing we're tracking. As I mentioned, I do think that's probably just a little bit of ground clutter in and around the Columbia area. But you look up towards the upstate, that might be a little bit of light snow falling up towards Abbeville, Anderson counties, maybe even up towards Lawrence County as well. But this is what we're tracking. As we mentioned, we do have that winter weather advisory for all of the Midlands, and we do have that winter storm warning in effect for Kershaw and Lee counties. But for a closer look at what you can expect for today, we'll send it over to meteorologist Alex Calamia.
Daniel, so the temperature going to continue to drop over the next few hours. We have the moisture moving in, so this is all setting the stage for a winter weather event. But of course, it all has to happen at the same time. You can't have cold air without moisture and still get a good snow or ice event. So this is what we are expecting to unfold. It's going to stay dry through at least 2 to 3 o'clock this afternoon. So the next few hours are quiet. Then we'll gradually start to work in some of that moisture that Daniel was pointing out towards South Georgia right now. It'll be in our area by about 2 to 4 o'clock. Temperatures are still borderline, so not everybody's getting a wintry mix. Some of it may be ice in the form of rain that freezes on contact with different surfaces. So things could start getting a little slippery in spots, but it's going to become a bit more widespread as we move into the late afternoon, early evening time frame. And temperatures will be cold enough to start transitioning things into snow. So I'm going to talk about 2 different models. And by the way, the threats don't end when we get past 9 o'clock, because even even though we're going to start seeing the snow come to an end, there will be some ice on the roads and in your yard, for example, into tomorrow morning because temperatures will be below freezing. One model, this is the HER, showing you just how quiet it is for the next few hours before that rain starts to move in. The green is showing rain, but there could be maybe a little bit of a mix going on even as early as 4 or 5 o'clock in the evening. Then this is what we're watching from 5 to 6 o'clock or so, a transition to all snow in the northwestern Midlands first, and then moving into the Columbia metro area by about 5 to 6 o'clock and becoming a bit more widespread across the Columbia metro area. That transition all the way to snow expected by about 8 o'clock today. So again, this model has been very reliable, still keeping the rain kind of sleet mix in there for the eastern Midlands as late as 8 o'clock. So you may not transition into snow at all during this event in places like Orangeburg, Clarendon County. It's going to be below freezing at the surface, but higher up, it's above freezing in those spots, so you're not getting the all snow. But you can see at 10 p.m., all the blue is indicating some pretty moderate snowfall. So if you wanted to take the kids out to see the snow, in places like Columbia, in places like the north and western Midlands, this afternoon into the evening time is going to do it for you. And of course, those areas with winter storm warnings, not only you're starting off with snow pretty early on, but it could linger into about 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. So places like Kershaw and Lee County could top out, higher than the rest of the Midlands when it comes to snow. Here's our in-house model showing things pretty quiet through 3 o'clock. This model does show a bit of a better opportunity for some of that freezing drizzle. You remember the model I just showed you before, the HER, kind of had rain through the 3 to 4 o'clock hour, whereas this one says it's cold enough that we could already deal with some icy issues from 3 to 4 o'clock right off the bat when the precipitation moves in. Here's about 5 o'clock or so, that blue starting to show into the northern and western Midlands, and then it nudges toward the I-20 corridor 8 to 9 o'clock this evening, and that's when we're potentially starting to see some coatings of snow occur on the grass, maybe on the sidewalk if it's cold enough. Temperatures are going to be below freezing, as I mentioned, in the eastern Midlands, but with the temperatures being higher up above, even this model is showing the pink at 1 o'clock in the morning in places like easternmost parts of Sumter County, Clarendon, Orangeburg, and Calhoun. So those would be the spots where we would expect the lowest, if any, snow, but there could be some flurries even there. Of course, we're going to start drying out around 10 o'clock to midnight, and we'll totally clear out by Saturday morning. 6 a.m., it's probably crystal clear outside, but it is also very cold. We're in the 20s. It feels like the teens. And as I mentioned, whether you get snow or ice or plain rain today, tomorrow it is frozen, whatever's left of it on the ground. And we don't warm up very quickly either. We won't hit above freezing until probably about 10, 11 o'clock on Saturday morning. And Saturday afternoon at most, we're only in the low 40s. So here's my call on what I am expecting as far as ice potential. It's mainly limited toward the PD, toward eastern North Carolina, but there could be some impacts as you move into Lee, Clarendon County, maybe Sumter, and then we can't rule out some limited impacts either for parts of I-20 corridor from just the ice alone. This is freezing rain I'm talking about. Everybody's in the potential for ice as we move into Saturday morning. Let's talk about the snow threat. This is a graph that we have not shown in quite some time. It has been 7 years since we have had an inch of snow at the Columbia Airport, longer than any other time on record. But the forecast calls for up to an inch in the Columbia metro area with locally higher amounts possible. So that's my call. Cannot rule it out that we do see our biggest snow in some kids' lifetime. But there is also the possibility that we are just dealing with a dusting. So there is a bit of a spread. I know it sounds like a much bigger spread than it actually is, but the reality is it doesn't take a lot of moisture to create snowfall. So a coating to an inch is actually a very narrow range. It just plays a very different role. It's, the difference between being able to shovel or not shovel. But your best chance either way for snow is going to be farther to the north and eastern Midlands. So we can say that with certainty, and don't get too hung up on the actual totals because, again, this does still have a bust potential. We are expecting the moisture to move in and increase throughout the afternoon. If it doesn't increase, then we're just getting some novelty snowflakes out of this. So, try your best not to get too excited. Actually, the latest GFS model has come in, and you can see it's a bit lower on the snow totals. It's still one of the more vigorous models when it comes to snowfall. It has 2 inches of snow for much of the Midlands. I do not think that is going to be the reality. The GFS has been overdoing a lot of the snowfall, but I just wanted to show you what we are processing as far as information goes. European model, a little bit more, I think, accurate at what we we would be expecting with that 2-inch snowfall potential toward Fairfield, Kershaw, maybe Lee County, and then a 1 to 2-inch kind of range for areas like Richland, Lexington, Newberry, maybe Saluda, maybe parts of Lee and Sumter under that 1 to 2-inch range, with it quickly cutting off as you move into Orangeburg, Clarendon, Calhoun County, and Aiken. Here's our shorter range model, which usually is very accurate, but I will say that it's probably overestimating the snow in the eastern Midlands because the HRRR model doesn't always measure ice. So it could be saying, okay, this ice that's happening is actually snow, and that wouldn't be correct. So I do think that some of these totals along the I-95 corridor are kind of a little bit overdone, but it is possible that we do see that 2-inch range toward the winter storm warned areas in Kershaw and Lee County, with a 1 to 2-inch for the Lexington, Columbia area. So these are just sort of like a little idea of what we're dealing with as far as the models. Obviously, even hours away from an event, they're still not all in agreement with each other, but you can see the trend, which is that the farther north and east you go, the better chance you have of measurable snowfall. Regardless, mixed precipitation possible mid-afternoon to evening. We're expecting that snow and ice accumulation is going to lead to some slippery spots into Saturday morning, and then of course we have dangerous wind chills whichever way you slice it, with feels like temperatures in the teens from sunset today to sunrise tomorrow. Of course, we're going to continue our team coverage throughout the afternoon and into the overnight too. So if there are any changes, you're going to hear about it here. Make sure you stay tuned because we'll have you covered. Thanks for watching and stay warm.